Hello and welcome to Breaking Bread with Rivaj Maharaj, where nothing is off the table. For today's episode, I wanted to talk about the current negotiations that are going on between the United States and the Iranian regime, which are being held in Oman. So without further ado, let's get into it. The negotiations between the Iranians and the United States that are being held in Oman has now concluded. I believe that the Iranians were over an hour late to the meeting. Nevertheless, I'm going to read out a tweet or a post that the Foreign Affairs Minister of Iran put on X. We engage in good faith and stand firm on our rights. Now, of course, with these kinds of negotiations, there always has to be posturing on both sides. The Americans do it, they're flexing their muscle visually with the armada that has moved into the Gulf region, as well as the rhetoric that is coming out from both the President of the United States as well as people within his administration, namely Marco Rubio. So it's no surprise that the Iranians would follow a similar template. I believe that this posturing and these kinds of remarks by the Iranians are there to assure their supporters within the country that they are standing firm and that they will not be held to ransom. There were also 2 days ago two notable incidents that occurred, one of which involved the IRGC speedboat approaching a US oil tanker and trying to intimidate the personnel aboard the tanker. And the second one was an Iranian reconnaissance drone that was dispatched near the location of the USS Abraham Lincoln, the battleship in the region. An F-35C was scrambled and it took down the drone. Now, once again, these are also posturings that the Iranians need to show that they are operating from a point of military strength. I also think that the rhetoric and the posturing by the Iranians is a message also for their enablers within the global community to notify them that they are prepared to take on the United States at any cost. Now, the US online Iranian embassy has issued a stark warning today. It has asked the US citizens within Iran to leave immediately. I will read through some of the points mentioned in the brief. So briefly, it's a security alert, land border crossings, February 5th, 2026. Location, Iran, countrywide. Event, increased security measures, road closures, public transportation disruptions, and internet blockages are ongoing. The government of Iran continues to restrict access to mobile, landline, and national internet networks. Airlines continue to limit or cancel flights to and from Iran. US citizens should expect continued internet outages, plan alternative means of communication, and, if safe to do so, consider departing Iran by land to Armenia or Turkey. Actions to take. Leave Iran now. Have a plan for departing Iran that does not rely on US government help. Flight cancellations and disruptions are possible with little warning. Check directly with your airline for updates. If you cannot leave, find a secure location within your residence or another safe building. Have a supply of food, water, medications, and other essential items. Avoid demonstrations. Keep a low profile and stay aware of your surroundings. Monitor local media for breaking news. Be prepared to adjust your plans. Keep your phone charged and maintain communication with family and friends to inform them of your status. Enroll in the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program STEP to receive the latest updates on security in Iran. Now, this is a serious bulletin put out by the United States Embassy, and I believe it's a sign of things to come. For me, since the press briefing where Marco Rubio answered questions posed to him by reporters at the critical minerals meeting.
We prefer to meet and talk. I'm not sure you can reach a deal with these guys, but we're going to try to find out.
And the subsequent events leading up to this bulletin release by the Iranian embassy indicates a continued trajectory by way of escalation in this ongoing battle between the United States and Iran. Looking at these steps on the path to on the escalation ladder, I'm certain that military action against the Iranian regime is imminent. I think that overthrowing the Iranian regime will be a feather in the cap for Donald Trump personally, but also his administration. It will also usher in an era of unprecedented control over the oil resources that the United States will be able to maintain. Now, if you remember in my previous videos, I spoke about how diplomacy is usually really ruthless, but it is conducted behind closed doors. During this current Trump administration, everything is out in the open. So, whilst the United States has maintained a tight grip on oil supplies in previous administrations, a lot of that happened behind closed doors. This is out in the open for everyone to see. The Trump administration is making no qualms about it. And by them controlling the oil supply in Venezuela, the oil supply in Iran, it will definitely hurt Chinese oil purchases. Up to 80% of all the oil that is produced by Iran is purchased by China. Venezuela had a similar situation. And bear in mind, the Chinese are purchasing oil from both these countries at knockdown prices. So it's a great win for the Chinese administration. However, Donald Trump being able to control the flow of oil in Venezuela as well as the flow of oil in Iran means that the Chinese access to that oil is controlled by the Americans, and the tap is then controlled by the Americans. So they can turn that tap on or off at will. Now, it's estimated that 40% of China's oil purchases comes from sanctioned oil from Russia, Venezuela, and Iran. It's believed that the sanctioned oil from Venezuela and Iran flow via Malaysia through intermediaries, which then helps disguise the origin of the oil. So if you look at it, there's quite a few players in this game that would like to see things remain as they are. However, there are also another group of players who would like to see a change because the benefit then passes on to them. I think that one way or another, the current Iranian regime is on borrowed time. I firmly believe that the United States attacking Iran militarily to try and destabilize and topple the government is an inevitability. You know, in a recent briefing that Scott Bessent made, he spoke about how the United States had manipulated the currency issue within Iran, which then forced the Iranian government to print more money, which caused the massive inflation, which then led to the uprisings that we saw recently. So those are bold statements coming out of the United States.
Okay, so two things there. There are Treasury sanctions. And if you look at a speech that I gave at the Economic Club of New York last March, I said that I believe the Iranian currency was on the verge of collapse, that if I were an Iranian citizen, I would take my money out. President Trump ordered Treasury and our OFAC division, Office of Foreign Asset Control, to put maximum pressure on Iran, and it's worked. Because in December, their economy collapsed. We saw a major bank go under. The central bank has started to print money. There is a dollar shortage. They are not able to get imports. And this is why the people took to the street. So this is economic statecraft. No shots fired. And things are moving in a very positive way here.
I don't think that US intervention in Iran is going to be easy. The Iranians are a formidable force. They have formidable backers. it will certainly turn out into a proxy war, and I'm certain that what we've seen in Libya, what we've seen in Syria, and what we've seen in Iraq will most certainly happen in Iran. Iran is made up of people from different ethnicities and religions, and there are a lot of different people within Iran that would like to seek some sort of independence should this regime collapse. So I think worst case scenario, Iran will descend into civil war. So if the Americans are to launch an incursion into Iran, I suspect that is why the territory of Pakistan was important, because India certainly wouldn't allow their airspace or their soil to be used for an operation to be conducted against Iran. And the Pakistani administration is a really duplicitous one. So all the pandering they've been doing to the President of the United States, Donald Trump, of recent times has endeared them to him. However, the American administration, as I've mentioned many times, has no friends. It only has strategic interests. Now, this relationship between the Pakistan administration and the Americans seems to have hit a bit of a roadblock, because two things have occurred that seem to indicate that there's a bit of turbulent times ahead for this relationship. Firstly, Donald Trump has reduced the tariffs on India to 18%. So that's a percentage lower than what his friends, the Pakistanis, are currently being given. Now, the second one is that Pakistan was not invited to the critical minerals meeting that the United States hosted. And this is important because if you remember a while back, I think it was late last year, that Asim Munir and Shehbaz Sharif had gone with a briefcase with all these sparkling gems, and the photos were taken of them in the Oval Office with Donald Trump with the bag open, and them saying to Donald Trump, Pakistan is yours for the taking. Now, either the Americans are not going to go into Iran, so Pakistan is no longer useful, or either they've found some other way of getting in. So we don't know what backroom deals are being done, but it doesn't bode well for the Pakistani administration because they've taken a lot of flack via social media from their own citizens regarding these two issues. Now, pivoting back to this meeting that the Iranians and the Americans had, critics of the meeting say it's actually a negotiation about a negotiation. I think that the Americans are just, if you look at the previous episode I did, I'll put it up here somewhere, where I mentioned that the Americans are following a diplomatic process only because it's the right thing to do. However, it's not what they actually would like to do. I think they are actively seeking to destabilize Iran and get the current Iranian regime removed. And I think that failure in that regard is certainly not an option. So for history's sake and to look noble, they're going along with the diplomatic part of this escalation, and they know at some point it's going to end in a stalemate. Nobody's going to want to budge, and that's when the military option will be invoked. So once again, I think that this meeting is just fanciful and there to say we've basically ticked all the boxes before we then go with the military option. So I want to thank you for taking the time to spend with us on this episode, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Please remember to like, share and subscribe, as it helps our channel with the algorithm and it helps our channel to grow.